What's up everyone, it's Rob from squashgearreviews.com and today I've got a review for you of the Adidas Stabil Next Gen. So what are the Stabil Next Gen? Well, this is the latest and greatest shoe from Adidas. It is their top of the line volleyball shoe. However, historically these have been incredibly popular for squash players. And why is that? Well, these shoes offer a ton of support, a ton of protection, and the fact that they have Adidas's Boost technology in the sole makes them incredibly comfortable. These shoes were brought out in 2020 and replaced the outgoing Stabil X model. So I used to use the Stabil X and I found, like I mentioned, they were incredibly comfortable and one of the most supportive shoes I ever got to wear on a squash court. The problem with them though was that because the Boost sole was exposed underneath, you often found that you got cracks under the heel, which meant that they really weren't great for squash in that aspect. However, the new 2020 model has been updated and the Boost technology is now placed inside the sole. So fingers crossed that will address that issue. So when these shoes were released, there was kind of a mixed reaction to them. They're definitely quite a big shoe as far as it goes. They are quite polarizing in the way that they look. I think they look a little bit like Yeezys mixed with basketball shoes. I was quite skeptical at first, but actually having tried them on, I really like the way these look, especially in the all white colour scheme. So what I'm going to do is over the next few weeks, I'm going to take these shoes on court and I'm going to really put them through their paces. It turns out I'm very good at breaking shoes in not a small space of time, so I'm going to have a good chance to see exactly how these perform on a squash court. And I'll report back. I'll let you know how suitable they are for squash, how comfortable I found them, and like I mentioned, how durable they are as well. So let's take them on court and let's see exactly how they perform. So we are back. It's been about 3 weeks since I first took these shoes on court. In that time, I've had some good chance to put them through their paces. I've done some training sessions, some solo practice, and I've played a couple of matches within my own support bubble as well. So overall, I've had about 15 hours of use out of these shoes, so a really good chance to test them out. Now, there was 3 things that I was looking for. I was looking for how comfortable they felt, how stable and supportive they were, and how durable they were as well. So the first thing is comfort. How comfortable were these shoes? Well, actually I really liked how comfortable they were. I think it's fair to say that they're quite a tight fit, so probably not ideal if you've got wide feet. It's always worth going up half a size with Adidas shoes, and this is no exception. So they're quite a tight fit, but that does mean that they feel quite snug as well. One of the features of the shoe is it's got a lace locking system, which means that you can get a really tight tie of your shoelaces. One of the problems that I found was that I actually managed to over tie the laces a little bit, make them a bit too tight, and that meant that the laces actually dug into the top of my feet, which wasn't the most comfortable. And as well as that, I also found that, especially when breaking these shoes in, the wrinkle at the toe area sometimes dug into the top of my foot, but after a few matches that kind of subsided. So these shoes are actually quite heavy. They weigh about 400 grams, which is probably towards the heavier end of the scale for squash shoes. But because they fit so well, actually, I really didn't notice the weight at all when I was wearing them. I saw someone describe them as like an extension of your foot, and I'd kind of be inclined to agree with that. Even though they do weigh a little bit, you definitely don't notice that weight when you're wearing them. And actually one of the real selling points of these shoes is that they have Adidas's Boost sole inside them, which has a fantastic amount of rebound energy and shock absorption. which is brilliant for squash as you're going to be spending a lot of time lunging. The boost material is actually placed underneath the heel area as well, so fantastic for that purpose. Overall, comfort-wise, they're a really comfortable shoe. Just make sure that you go up at least half a size, otherwise they probably will feel too tight. So the next thing to look at is how stable these shoes felt and how supportive they were. So when I saw these shoes were made out of a prime knit material, I was a bit concerned, thinking that they might be a bit flimsy. But actually, these shoes have got a cage inside the shoe, and what that does is it gives the shoes a lot more support, especially around this area, which is fantastic for lateral side-to-side movements, again, that you'll be making in squash. The shoes themselves, they've got quite deep ridges in the rubber underneath, which is fantastic for grip. I never found myself slipping at all, which was a real positive for these shoes. The one area which these shoes don't perform quite as well as the older Stabil X model is if you need upper ankle support. The older shoes were much more of a high top design, which give you more support around the top of your ankles. These shoes seem to give more of a preference towards supporting your lower ankle and heel area. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something to be aware of. The final thing to look at with these shoes is how durable they are. And this is always a really interesting one because I think it's quite dependent on how you move as a player. I'm really bad for dragging my left toe when I hit the ball. Watching videos back of myself, it's pretty atrocious watching how badly I do it. And that's kind of evident in the shoe, though it has held up quite well. The shoes have got a TPU layer around the toe area, which is really well placed, and it'll help to increase the life of the shoes a little bit. Though I have found that I did start to go through the TPU layer towards the very end of testing them. I'm a little bit concerned as to how durable the prime knit fabric underneath would be, but that's something that only time can tell. So if you are bad for dragging your toes like me, you might not get a huge amount of life out of them, though they have held up pretty well as far as squash shoes go. So overall, how would I rate these shoes? So when I first saw them, I was a little bit skeptical. They were quite a change from the older Stabil X model, which was really popular with squash players. These look a lot more streamlined, a complete change in design, a different fabric on the outside, so it was always going to be interesting. But actually, I really liked these shoes, especially after using them for quite a while now, and I've fully broken them in. At first, like I said, they were a little bit tight, took a little bit of getting used to, and I had to figure out not to tie the laces as tight as I was doing. But once I figured that out, they were fantastic in the comfort area. Stability wise, they are called the Stabil for a reason. They are fantastic for that purpose. If you're doing a lot of lateral movements, a lot of lunges, these are going to support your feet really well. Durability is an interesting one. They seem to have held up pretty well. Maybe not as well as the older shoes would have done, but they seem to be doing all right for now. I usually go through shoes quite quickly, and these are seeming to hold up pretty well. So these shoes currently retail at £120, which is quite expensive. It's definitely one of the more expensive squash shoes that you'll find. However, I think the price is justified. They are really comfortable. The boost sole is fantastic. And it's really clear that Adidas have put a lot of thought into how these shoes are designed. I think even though squash isn't their main market, they are really good as a squash shoe. So that's it for today's video. If you like what you saw, leave a like. Make sure to comment below if there's any other things that you would like to see on the channel. Subscribe if you really like the video. And if you're looking for any more squash equipment reviews, make sure to check out squashgearreviews.com.